Hey girls and gals, welcome back to another reading vlog. I am not appearing on camera right now because I am very sick at the moment and I don't want to be on camera. I'm going to get a COVID test today, not one of the at-home ones, but driving to a Walgreens and doing one of those drive-through ones, so we'll see if I have that. But I just wanted to come on and give some reading updates because even though I have been feeling like very under the weather, I have been reading a lot. So first up with the reading update, if you watched my last vlog, you'll have seen that I had started Acts of Service by Lillian Fishman. I did finish this and I didn't love it, and I just think I'm just not the target audience for this potentially. It's very short. I think it's just over 200 pages. It's literary fiction. That's not something that I normally dabble in, where it's like very contemporary, modern day, following someone in New York. It's about this woman named Eve, and she's living a very complacent life. She has a job that she doesn't mind, but she doesn't love. She has a long-term relationship with her girlfriend who she is in love with, but she just feels like the relationship is boring. So randomly, out of nowhere, she takes some nudes and posts them online, I believe like Craigslist or a similar site, and then randomly meets up with this woman, and they get to know each other, and then this woman invites Eve to be in like a sexual relationship with her and her partner, who is a man. Now that's the setup for this. I just feel like my biggest issues were that I didn't really know like what this book was trying to say. I didn't really feel like there was a point. It was very interesting. It's very introspective. I just didn't feel like any of the characters were very likable at all. There wasn't really any character growth or character development, as well as this is like really sexually graphic, which I mean, duh, Taylor, I feel like I could have guessed based on the synopsis and like the cover, but it was just like a lot of very towing the line of consensual and like not so consensual sex. The main male character is straight, and he doesn't really seem to have a high regard for queer women at all. So I was just reading a lot about sexual encounters with like a cis straight man who didn't really hold any of the women in this book with any sort of like high regard. So just very bizarre. I didn't really like it. This has been compared to Sally Rooney. It's been compared to the book Luster. So just if you really liked those, maybe give this a shot, but I did not like it. Now, next up, we do have things that I'm liking a little bit better, which is nice. So first of all, I finally started A Cruel and Fated Light by Ashley Shuttleworth, and this is the sequel to A Dark and Hollow Star, which was one of my favorite books of 2020. It's an urban fantasy. It's a very queer urban fantasy following a cast of fae. And the first one very much gives me House of Earth and Blood vibes by Sarah J. Maas. Just with, there's a bunch of fae teens, there's something or someone killing off Ironborn fae, and these teens are trying to figure out what it is and maybe stop that. Now, the second book, I haven't gotten too far into it, so I'm not really sure what we're going to follow. There's my bookmark. I've barely brushed the surface. This is a very chunky fantasy, but so far, so good. We are following the characters who had kind of teamed up at the end of the first book. They're separate at the beginning of this. They're all in different spaces, different fae courts, but we're kind of seeing them all get a reason to gather together, so that'll be really exciting once they all get together again. So I'm enjoying this. I'm switching back and forth between the physical and the audio. The audiobook is really, really good for the most part. I do really enjoy it. Every single point of view character has a different narrator. There is just one narrator that was introduced in this book that wasn't in the first book, that I do not really care for the narration, and I don't know if it's just because I already had their voice in my own head as to how they would sound, and then it's an audiobook narrator because this character hadn't actually had a point of view chapter in the first book. So I don't know if it's that, but I'm just switching off back and forth between reading it physically and reading it via audiobook, so I am enjoying that. And then last but not least, I'm reading Ordinary Monsters Sorry, it's a very shiny cover on its own, and then I have library binding on it. I'm gonna have to open it up to the title page because the cover was not working with my lighting situation. But this is the first book in a historical fantasy trilogy, and it takes place in 1882, and I am almost 100 pages into this one. It's about 600 pages. I am really digging this one so far. So we're going back and forth. We've been in Victorian London. We've also been in the United States. I believe we're also going to travel to Tokyo and Scotland throughout the course of the series, or maybe this book. But this is following a group of characters who've been introduced so far to two children with extraordinary abilities. One of them regenerates, like he heals himself. So if he gets hurt, his body heals. And then the other one, he like glows bright blue, and he also has the ability when he touches someone when he glows to burn them. We're following those two characters, and then we're also following a female detective who is working for this agency who is rounding up these kids and taking them to this academy, this safe place where they don't have to be hunted for these abilities. So very much giving the X-Men vibes. And that's really all that I've gotten to so far, is just introducing the characters, finding out what they do. I believe those are the three main points of view, those two children and the detective. So I'm very intrigued. I love a good X-Men vibe. I love any iteration of magical school, magical powers, group of kids, teens, adults, what have you, kind of coming together. And the synopsis for this one, so there's an eerie estate where these children are being taken to, where other children with these gifts, these talents have been gathered, and there the world of the dead and the world of the living threaten to collide. So yes, sorry for the shiny cover, but I am really loving this one, and it's one of my most anticipated releases for this year. So I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to really sit down and read it. So while I'm not feeling good, really been enjoying what I've been reading. Also, I'm going to take you down to the Fulero real fast and show you just like a fun little package that I got this week for content. This is not book related, as you can tell. It's a Bath & Body Works order, but they had their semi-annual sale and I ordered just a couple of things, and yeah, I just figured, you know, I'd show, because I feel like, you know, the Venn diagram of people who love to read, people who love like lighting candles and having a cozy ambiance, I feel like there's a lot of overlap between those two groups of people. And so, like, fun fact about me, I did used to work for Bath & Body Works for a number of years as like a shift manager, and then being in like charge of shipments. So I haven't actually like bought Bath & Body Works for a long time, pretty much, because we would get so much free stuff in terms of we would get like new products that we're releasing so that we could try them out and then give our opinion to customers, help sell the product. There's just a lot of free stuff being given if you work at Bath & Body Works. So yeah, it was a fun job. So yeah, I haven't actually bought anything in quite some time. This is like the first year really that I have purchased things. Well, I take that back. I did purchase some stuff for their Halloween line last year, and that's pretty much when I really stock up on their fall stuff, because I pretty much have that going year round. But yeah, I got a package and I've been feeling so under the weather and so sick, but this was like a really nice thing to get today. Semi-annual sale, it's all super cheap, love it. Beach Nights, this is like one of my favorite creams. It's marshmallow. I absolutely love their body cream, and I did end up getting this because I'm a part of their rewards program, so this was free. And then moving to the candles, I actually got some summery ones, which obviously, like I just said, like 90% of my candles are fall candles, but I couldn't resist some of these. So this one's Market Peach and Strawberry Pound Cake. This is like their new blends collection. I've had both Market Peach candles and Strawberry Pound Cake candles before. Absolutely love them. This definitely has like a cakey smell with fruit. I love bakery smells, and this is good for summer, I feel. I also got Summer Boardwalk. This is one of my all-time favorite scents. I would say out of all the Bath & Body Works summer scents, this is my favorite. And this smells like caramel corn and like candy apples. So very summery. I really enjoy this. This is one they usually come out with every year. So I usually get one a year. And then this one is usually in their fall collection, but it was an online exclusive this year. And I picked it up because I wasn't sure if it was like an online only for good. And if it was online only and just in the summer, I didn't want to miss out on it in the fall. But this is warm apple pie, exactly what it sounds like. It's got a very, very summery package, which I'm actually not super into. Not a 4th of July person, much prefer Halloween and like the fall, but this is one they usually have in the fall, and I love it. It's so cozy. I love bakery scents. So yeah, that's my little candle stash. I'm sure if you've watched my vlogs before, I'm always like burning a candle or two throughout it, so I'm excited to burn some of these candles. But yeah, that's my update. I don't have anything else to do today other than my appointment where I'm going to Walgreens and getting tested. But yeah, this is today's talking update, and hopefully I will be feeling a little bit better soon, fingers crossed. So I will talk to you all later. Hey girls and gals, welcome to the vlog. I know I kind of already introduced this vlog, but definitely not a lot of me coming on here and actually talking to you guys about the books that I've been reading, just because last week I was very sick. Thought it might have been COVID. Someone in my office had to quarantine last week because a lot of their family members had gotten COVID. So I was very worried that that was the case, because all of the symptoms that I was having very much were mirroring like the symptoms of COVID right now. And then also my sister, like a couple weeks back, got COVID, and what she said that she was feeling when she got COVID was what I was feeling. So thankfully I didn't have it, but I never really figured out what I did have. So yeah, last week I took a couple days off of work and I was pretty much in bed all of those days. They're very laid back. I was very wiped out. Even on Friday, like when I went back to work, I worked a shorter day than I normally did, because I just was still so exhausted just from doing normal things that normally in the grand scheme of my job doesn't wear me out, but it really did. And like, I'm a very active person. I work out for 5 days a week. That didn't happen. I was just completely wiped out. So that was pretty much all last week when I tried to start a reading vlog, but it is Monday, June 20th, and I am kind of keeping on going with this vlog. Thank goodness for audiobooks, because definitely at the beginning of the week especially, I just was not able to have, like, I didn't have the concentration to pick up a book and physically read. But it was nice when I was just like laying in bed feeling very ill, being able to listen to an audiobook. So I did get a lot of reading in, which is good because both books that I'm currently reading at the moment are very large. So first up, a book that I'm hoping to finish today is A Cruel and Fated Light by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is book 2 in the Hollow Star saga, the first book being A Dark and Hollow Star that came out in 2020. This is a YA urban fantasy that very much blends like Greek mythology and fae and fairy magic systems, things like that. The first book is set primarily in Toronto. This one, a lot of the action takes place in one of the fae courts that is in Las Vegas. So I'm highly enjoying it. This is the one that I've been listening to a lot of the audiobook for. It is a full cast narration. I'm about 70% of the way through this one, and what I really like about this one, I feel like this does not have middle book syndrome at all. I know that can be like fairly common in fantasy. I don't know if this is a trilogy or like a quartet, but in fantasy trilogies, I feel like that is obviously, since there's a name for it, a very common occurrence. But I feel like this one builds upon the first one in a really good way. I do think it's also interesting how in the first book, I did enjoy all 4 of our main characters, but I did have a preference. I feel like that's not unusual to have just certain point of views you like more than others. I don't know if it, well, I do know actually, it's just based on what the characters are doing in this book. It's actually become quite reversed for me, which is nice because I feel like that is such a good sign almost for this series, because it shows that I pretty much like the characters all very equally, but it just depends on what they're doing. I think in terms of just the different plots, and I can't say too much about this one because it is book 2 in a series, but just which characters are doing what. The characters that I thought maybe had the weaker plot in book 1 have a stronger plot here, which is exciting. As well as book 1 had 4 main points of view, kind of a 5th. Again, can't really talk too much about it because that's kind of a spoiler for the end of book 1, but this one introduces like some characters that didn't have point of views. They have point of views, so I feel like this is expanded upon and kind of fleshed out, and the stakes getting even bigger, the world getting bigger in a very engaging way. So I'm really loving reading this. It was one of my most anticipated reads, releases of the year, so I was very glad to just be so involved in that world, especially because I was sick. It was quite nice just to lay there and listen to a really good audiobook with a world and characters that I was already familiar with and really enjoyed. The second book is Ordinary Monsters by Miro. This is the first book in the Talents trilogy, and this is a historical fantasy taking place in Victorian England. It does also take place in the United States, Scotland, and also Japan a little bit. So this is also one that's like going to be very large in scope. But this book is just such a delight. As someone who really enjoys historical fantasy, at least I thought I really enjoyed historical fantasy, that has been like a subgenre of fantasy and just work as a whole where I just haven't really been enjoying it. I used to really love like things set in Victorian England and like magical historical worlds. I haven't read a book like that in a while that I've actually enjoyed, even though I love the concept so much of worlds like that, but I am absolutely loving this one. If you really enjoy kids with magical powers tropes, I think you should pick this up. It's doing some very interesting things, just not only with the children's powers, but just kind of like the plot itself. If you liked The Diviners, I would say this is a very adult version of The Diviners, a lot of ways where it is historical fantasy, but then it has kind of some horror elements in it too, which is
really fun, and which I noticed from the back that Joe Hill and Alma Katsu are both people blurbing this book, and they both write, I mean, Joe Hill writes horror, Alma Katsu writes horror, but historical horror. So I thought those were interesting blurbs because I thought this was going to be a historical fantasy only. But there are some horror elements in here, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm on page 220 out of about 650 pages, but I'm contemplating picking up the audiobook for this one too, because I have heard really good things, and I'm enjoying the story so much. So even though like the past week has not been a personal high for me in terms of just physical and then just like mental health too, I just was not feeling my best in any sense of the word, but at least I have been picking up some really good books. Really excited because I think honestly like both of these books very easily could fit in my top 10 books of the year. That's how good my reading week has been. So especially this one, I'm very intrigued to kind of pick it up and finish it. Not that I haven't really enjoyed A Cruel and Fated Light, but that's something where like I went into it knowing that I was going to love it, and I really had no idea how much I was going to love Ordinary Monsters. So yeah, I am going to go to work, but I just wanted to come on before work and kind of introduce this vlog a little bit more formally than I did at the beginning of the week. But yeah, I'm really loving the things that I'm reading, and I will talk to you all in another reading update later. Good morning vlog. Happy Thursday. Since I last spoke to y'all, I did finish A Cruel and Fated Light by Ashley Shuttleworth, and I really enjoyed this one. I definitely thought it was such a great sequel. I felt like the first book was kind of more plot forward, even though it did introduce a great cast of characters. What I really enjoyed about the second book is this one's kind of more character focused, and it definitely has a lot of characters uncovering their powers, learning more about their powers and their destinies and what they're supposed to play in this whole big conflict that takes place throughout this 4-book series. So I did really enjoy this one. I definitely think this is a lot slower paced. It definitely kind of feels like that at times, I would say, especially at the beginning. It's over 600 pages, and it definitely isn't as plot heavy, as action heavy as the first book, but I really feel like the world building and the character building is so essential, because this is such like a vast and kind of complicated world at times, because we have like Greek mythology and then like fae and fairy mythology with all sorts of like magical creatures. So just spending some time really learning more about how the world works, I felt was really appreciated, because some things in the first book that I didn't feel like were explained, where it kind of felt like you would learn about them later, you did learn about them later. So I really enjoyed this one. I know I've kind of compared the first book to House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, but especially I felt like this one really had a pacing of one of the later Throne of Glass books, how it's kind of slower to start out with, and then the last like 200 pages or so are quite explosive with action happening. So kind of that kind of fantasy pacing. If you're used to that in authors like Sarah J. Maas, I don't think you'll have a problem with this. I know like 600+ page books can definitely be intimidating for people, but I really enjoyed this one, and I'm kind of bummed I read it so close to when it released, because I'm gonna be waiting a while for the third one, and the ending of this is quite shocking and a lot of a cliffhanger. So yeah, I'm ready for book 3 whenever that may be. And then the other white whale of a tome that I've been reading for the past week or so, Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I'm 52% of the way through this one, and I feel like this is gonna be one of my favorite books of the year. I just can't remember the last time from like page 1 that I fell so hard for not just the characters and like the plot, but just the way the story is written as well. It's combining so many things that I love. This is like very X-Men or Umbrella Academy meets Penny Dreadful, and I feel like if you really enjoy the Diviners, you would really enjoy this as well. It definitely has those historical fiction plus like a horror fantasy element to it. So yeah, I'm really loving this one. I will say this one definitely a slow burn. If you don't like slower paced books, I think you might have some troubles getting into this one because I am on page 300 or so, and we've just kind of moved on from introducing all of the main players and the characters and really introduced to the magic system and the plot. Not to say things don't happen, and I do think there's like a first plot that happens kind of at the beginning, and then you kind of, at this part where I'm at, are kind of starting to learn the plot that's going to carry you through the rest of the series, because there are character objectives for the first 300 pages. It's not like nothing is happening, but there are a lot of characters in this, and with any magic system, and also I feel like a lot of times with historical fiction, it's really important to build up a sense of place and time before just jumping right into it. So it is very slow moving, but I love slow moving large books, so that's really not an issue for me. But I'm really loving this one, hoping to finish it soon. It's definitely larger in page count, but just because I'm enjoying it so much, I have been really flying through it when I've had the chance to pick it up. But that's really all I have for a reading update. I might pick another book up as an audiobook during work today and tomorrow, just because I think I have some holds on Libby that are expiring. But this is my priority book. I definitely want to finish it by the end of this week. So yeah, there might be another book thrown into the mix, there might not be. I've really been enjoying the huge books that I've read this week. But yeah, I'm actually filming this before work, so I do have to keep getting ready for work, but I'm looking forward to finishing Ordinary Monsters, maybe picking up another book, but I will talk to you all with another reading update later. Alright, so it is time for me to end this weekly reading vlog. I did not get that much more reading done. I've been very distracted by the nightmare that is the United States right now, so understandably, I feel like I did not have a whole lot of time to read. I'm trying to get back into it just as like an escape, so I can read and unplug my brain from like constantly doom scrolling through social media. So I really don't have like a substantial reading update for you guys, but I'm still working my way through Ordinary Monsters. I'm about 60% of the way through this one, so still really loving it. Still will probably be maybe one of my favorite books of the year, so I am gonna take this one really slowly. I don't want to force myself to read it when I potentially could be in a reading slump or just really not in like a good like mental health space to read, so definitely don't want to force that. But 60% of the way through this one, still absolutely loving it. And then the book that I did pick up this week, haven't really talked about it, haven't really read a lot about it, but I do need to return it very early next week at the library, so I do need to get through it. When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This is a historical, I think like kind of magical realism, or like very light on the fantasy aspects. It's following a young woman in a world very much like ours, except for one big event in 1955. A lot of women just spontaneously turned into dragons, so it's called the Great Dragoning Event. This is a timely and timeless speculative novel, and the author boldly explores rage, memory, and the tyranny of forced limitations. When Women Were Dragons exposes a world that wants to keep women small, their lives and their prospects, and examines what happens when they rise en masse and take up the space they deserve. So honestly, probably this one might be like a very timely book for me to read at the end of June going into July. So I do need to read this weekend, but I'm not very far into it. I'm only about 50 pages into it, but from what I've read so far, I have really enjoyed. I think it's interesting. It's kind of a multimedia like sort of style where between every chapter we'll get like a newspaper clipping or like a doctor's report or something about this mass dragoning event as we're following the story of one girl. So yeah, I could really enjoy this. It is a little too soon to say just because I haven't read that much in it, but I think I'm gonna enjoy it. So yeah, so these are the two books that I'm probably going to close out my June with. So I guess it's good that I'm enjoying both of them, but I really don't have too much to say. I've been just very worn out and drained. It's not been a fun time. I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel scared. There's a lot of emotions going on right now. So I will be leaving resources in the description bar of this video because I know I'm not the only one who's just feeling like very unmoored at the moment. So so yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was like not like the most uplifting of vlogs, just because, you know, I did start it sick and then just kind of ended it with half the country losing rights. So yeah, it was not like a fun couple of weeks for me, but I did find some really good books. So I think that's really important, is being able to take time, and even though you might feel like you need to or want to be doing something productive or revolutionary at every single moment, just take time for yourself. Very important to keep your physical and mental well-being intact. That's really important too. So just make sure, take time for yourself. It's still really important to, you know, just pick up a book or pick up a video game, something like that, like disconnect. I know it's so important to stay involved, and it's so important to stay up to date and informed, but definitely take a break from doom scrolling. I know it's really hard not to. It's really important to know that if you are running yourself ragged, if you're running yourself thin, you cannot show up and be the best advocate and best activist for yourself and for other people. So yeah, just, you know, make sure to take time for yourself. Don't burn out. It's a scary time, and you know, it's probably gonna get a lot worse before it gets better, but we've got this, right? I mean, I really, yeah, it's hang in there. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more content. Stay safe, stay spooky. I mean that now more than ever. Stay safe out there. It's a sad, scary, dangerous time. And I will again be leaving information and resources in the description bar of this video. Make sure you do stay safe, and I will see you all in another video. Bye.